So I think we'll just have it as a sort of an interactive session. So it's not like I'll be just talking about something. So you can just interrupt me anytime, and that will be more interesting, I guess. So we'll just start off. Okay. So I'll just like to start off with one simple question. You take a liter of 1 liter bottle, okay, and you fill it fully with soil. And if you try to pour water into it, will you be able to pour some water into it?
Sure.
And how much?
500 ml.
500 ml.
600.
In 1 liter bottle. Yeah.
If the soil is dry.
It's a soil.
So actually, in some soils, especially sandy soils, you may be able to pour 500. So it's like 40-50% can hold water. So if I talk about water, I'll have to talk about soil. So soil and water are very interrelated. It's almost like one and the same, because water lives in or stays in the gaps of soil. So so anywhere, whatever falls as rain basically is like we pour water into the bottle with soil, and then it absorbs. Soil everywhere sort of absorbs. Where we are right now, there is water underneath, but it is in the form of soil water. It may not even be a water. And where does even we'll just have very basic this thing. Where does all the trees take water from? So it is basically this soil water we call it. So it is, I mean, in the soil, if there is water, there is rainfall today, and after for 2 months there won't be rain. Even if there is no rain for 2 months, 3 months, we don't see the trees dying. So it's basically that it's able to access water, soil water that is there all over. And there is also this thing, this water, does it stay or does it move? Moves. Okay. So where does it move?
Well, into the air, into the ground.
Some evaporate, but what? It's in the PPT files folder. So water is constantly moving. So when rain falls down on the soil, soil absorbs it. It just keeps going down. And if we keep digging, what will you get in the soil? Keep digging the soil, then what will you get? Yes. I mean, if we just dig up a place here.
Yeah.
You get more soil.
More soil, and after that, stones. Okay, water also you make it. Stones, and then clay. You keep digging. Limestone,
Water.
and water, and after then
Sand.
bedrock. So
Bedrock.
but generally there is a hard rock kind of a thing. Okay, so and you will get a lot of water above that bedrock, because after that it can't percolate.
Yeah.
And so water keeps moving down. It hits the bedrock kind of. Then what happens?
It goes down here.
It can't go. It's not permeable.
I know down here, but down here, but down like.
Yeah, exactly. So
Gravity.
depending on the shape of the bedrock, depending on the slope, if it is on top, we can clearly see, okay, elevation is sloping this way, water flows this way. But underground, depending on the elevation of the bedrock, water keeps moving. Okay. PPT files, then the folder. Then the water flow. Yeah, that's that. And then there is a Water flow, yeah, overhead rock. These two you can see. So I've just, there is a small clipping. It is just taken above on the surface. Uh, just observing some rocks around, you'll find a lot probably here. So just rocks, water is flowing on. So geology, hydrogeology is as simple as this. It's just you are observing this rock on top, but imagine this whole rock is a bedrock which is like 50 meters, 100 meters down, underground and filled with soil on top. You can see water is flowing from top to bottom, right? So similar fashion, as you were also mentioning, water just flows underground. Okay, and next video, please. So you just simply observe there is also some moisture. There is a small bowl kind of a formation. Water is stagnant there in small bowls in the rock. Then you can see various bowls. One bowl gets filled and then flows to the next bowl. And you see a major crack there. All this you just observe on a rock on top. Anywhere you will observe these. And it's just taken right after rain, so all the bowls are filled. We'll just play it again once more.
Is it accurate to say this is exposed bedrock, or is there still bedrock?
This is may not be a bedrock; it's just exposed top rock. But what I'm trying to say is, this is a small piece of rock. Imagine, just extrapolate. Imagine this is a huge rock, which is a bedrock right under the ground, and you have soil on top of it. So water moves inside the soil exactly in the fashion as you're seeing here. There will be a lot of bowl formations. Rock shapes will be like bowls. So when rainwater comes, it will just go, the whole bowl will be filled underneath. The bowl, single bowl could be for a half a kilometer in the bedrock. It could be for a few kilometers, square kilometers. So, so if someone puts a bore well right on near this bowl, then they'll get more water.
So that water is not moving.
There in the bowl, it is not moving. It is filling the bowl, and then it will overflow. Like as we are saying, it will overflow into the next obstruction, next bowl kind of. It will keep moving like that, and all the way till the ocean. So all water is connected. So a drop of water is here, it is connected to the ocean. And like exactly how water flows on surface, on river streams, on top you see all over, it is similarly flowing everywhere. Here, there, where you're sitting right underneath. It is in movement. And it just like this fashion, it just fills up slowly. But there is a major difference between surface flow and ground flow. What is it?
Speed.
It moves for capillary.
Capillary. So in the rivers, you will see water just gushing, right? Roughly at what speed? Like we drive a bike or something.
30 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, 30-40 kilometers an hour. And guess what the speed will be inside the soil?
About 1 kilometer an hour.
1 meter.
1 meter.
1 meter a day.
1 meter a day.
So the whole
in sand.
In sand it will be slightly faster.
Yeah.
It will be little faster. But in typical soils, in clay it will be low.
Yeah.
Because very low. Sometimes clay may not even let water down much.
Right.
So the whole idea of water restoration is about this. Don't let water run on the surface because it runs at 30 kilometers per hour. If there is a rainfall here, next day it will reach 100 kilometers or a few hundred kilometers. Say at least 100 kilometers. So if there is one heavy rain here, if it's a city, it's a concrete jungle, then what happens? Then all flooding.
Yes.
But do you get so? And on the other hand, if there is no rainfall for say 3 years, not a single drop of rain in this whole Auroville, what will happen to the groundwater? So, there's just absolutely no rain for say 3 years, 5 years.
When it will be finished, where did it go?
Aquifer run into the sea.
See,
You see,
so it's like water will deplete. It will deplete. See, okay, let's see what other sources of water. One source is rainfall, and especially Auroville kind of a sea places adjacent to seashore. There is also another source of water, major source of water, but comes from horizontal direction. Rain is one source we call sea, seawater intrusion. So, for example, 5 years there is no rainfall here. What will happen? Seawater will come because here there is a gap. We are again, draining water out of wells and bore wells. Here it is getting emptied. So basically, water what knows nothing but to flow from top to bottom. So sea level is up, and then underneath we don't have water, so it sort of slowly moves in. The reverse of how we were discussing. Okay, this way. So I'm just forgetting to move the slides, but I'm just okay. So you can put the next. This was about different soils, how much percentage of capacity it has. There are 2-3 concepts called free draining water, water available for plants. There is one type of water. So different soils have different percentage. So we were just discussing sources of water. So source one is seawater, and there is also another source of water. May not be in south, but north India. Ice, yeah. So ice melting.
Yeah.
So basically, these are the major 3 sources. In north, in Himalayas and the down plains of Himalayas, you will have, even if there is no rain for 5 years, there will be some source of water, from elsewhere. But here, if there is simply no rain in Auroville, then this thing is, you would have heard about seawater intrusion. So basic this thing is about this. There is no rain, less rain, or the other fundamental thing is supply demand. There is supply. Aquifer is it's like huge dam. What we are standing on, every place is like a dam. The bowls that you saw, we don't have to construct huge dams out on top. There is already nature has designed so many dams for us underneath. So if that water is depleted, then the seawater intrusion comes. So it keeps coming in. For example, sometime before I read an article saying 20 kilometers it has come in. Saltwater intrusion has come in North Chennai. So if there is less recharge or less water going into the soil, then automatically in the coastal areas that happens. The next. Okay, so there is also something called, are you allowed to take soil, sand, river sand and construct? Why is it not allowed? It needs to, soil, sand needs to go to the ocean. Maybe.
It makes the speed in the river faster. More like it changes.
It's faster. But my guess is what you said is true. It changes the speed, but it slows down.
It keeps water wet, all the water. It keeps the water there. The river is flowing.
So, for example, let us say there is a river, and there is 5 feet of water flowing in the river. 2 scenarios. One, there is no sand at all. It is just flowing. Second scenario is there is some 10 feet of sand. So we already discussed 50% sand holding capacity. So 5 feet of water is flowing, If there is 10 feet of sand, will you see water on top or not?
No.
You won't. But still water is flowing. The point is at what speed? Because of sand, there is no evaporation. Water is flowing underground. There is no major this thing. And at the same time, it is slowing down the rate. Slowing down means it is basically acting like check dams. Each and sand, every sand particle is like a check dam. We talk about constructing check dams, right? So that slows down and keeps the water there so that the aquifer in that area can be recharged. That same water, if it stays, slowly moves and stays in that area for 1 month, then it has that much time to seep in and go into the aquifer, right? So that's when you will get water in your wells and bore wells. So the sand is critical recharge structure in rivers. So that's the reason we say, okay, let's not. If you just take it out, then it becomes like a pipeline.
Yeah.
Direct to the sea. So, we also, there are various technologies available now. I'll not get into it too much. Various satellite imagery, river mapping. Next, please. And as we discussed, the important thing is to slow down the water, try and make it percolate wherever it is just dropping down as rain. Then the time it is available in that area is more. So in that time, we can access it. That's available for the wells and bore wells and streams everywhere. Yeah. Next. So I mean, to augment it, to sort of make recharge more effective, we can do some simple earthen structures that with using local materials, sand and rock and what is there. Instead of building a concrete kind of a thing, we just use the rock formation that is already there, so that it's also cost effective at the same time. More less energy consuming the whole process. Then you will slowly see, and these small structures, there are minor intricacies. Water is like very fluid. That's how, I mean, the sense. It is a fluid, but it's like that. But it has enormous energy if it, gathers together. So it will just break anything and everything in front. If that outlet is just not, made properly, that's the only critical this thing in designing this. That was a broken dam. Sorry. Yeah, next, please. So, okay, you see water flowing. Why does water flow? When does water flow? So we just discussed a little. When there is slope. In a rivers, typically in the river, there are so many rivers drying up.
When there's excess
Excess where?
of water, it flows.
Yeah, excess flows. Okay, that's one thing. One is rains and runoff water flows, gushes out. Okay, the same day, it just runs downstream. But you will see a lot of perennial streams like this flowing slowly, say for months together. When will that flow happen?
When there's vegetation upstream, that holds the water.
Okay.
The water is circulated from top to bottom and coming from
Basically, if water is filled all the way bottom, it can't go anywhere down. Then it flows up, right? Like the sand example we saw. Water will become perennial if the aquifers, if the down is all maximum recharged. It can't penetrate much. So flowing water is a very good sign of water restoration there in the area. Perennial flowing water. If there is no water, then it means that people are depleting it all over. So it is just not even enough to fill some gaps underneath. So it can't flow on top. And if we do, this is a place where we've done 5-6 years before, we've done some major thing, and the stream started flowing. Or it was flowing earlier for 1 month, 2 months a year, but now it is flowing for 4-5 months a year. It's almost the same. So basically, water restoration on minor check dams, various small things. Ensure simple concept of trying to let water percolate then and there instead of letting it run off. Be it could be a forest. Forest will do that exactly. You don't have to do anything. If already there is a forest, then it's all already doing all that activity. Because there is leaf litter, there is trees, that this thing and everything is slowing the rate of flow. Especially if there is a grassland, it will be much more effective. So forest, all these natural systems by itself take care of it. I mean, if there is if there is actually deterioration, then there is need for us to do something. Otherwise, it's already sort of taking care in its own.
What are these two pictures actually?
It's just that is a well close by to this river. So if you see, if there is a flowing river, then you will see water, groundwater, right, well above. It's just a close by well. If the water in the well is at about 10 feet. This is a flowing river next to it. Next. This is all basic, simple recharge structures and various things that we can do. You can just.
Where do you do these things?
In number of places, so here if you see, we've just there is a Borambu little hard rock, so we've just left that as outlet point instead of constructing anything. So where do we do? So we sort of help various organizations who want to do something. We technically plan and help them. Like for example, there is one organization works in central Tamil Nadu. They cover lakes. Some government and other NGOs, and even some private players, if they want to do something in their location, we sort of do the planning and we also implement. So basic design what to do, what not to do, right? Next. Is all planning the whole thing. Basically, if you see, there will be network. Most of our designs will have a network of small ponds and this thing. So even historically in Tamil Nadu, especially South India, if you see Cholas and other kings have done an enormous effort, in trying to put systems, water management systems. You will have any place, any small village you go, there will be in Tamil they call it Kamai and Kulam, then Eri, then one will fill. It's called cascading network of waterways. Cascading system is this thing. So you will find it anywhere, but it will be different in more. See, a number of places. What we do is, if some village, people will get together and want to do something about water restoration. Somehow they'll get to know about us.
What are the different ones?
This is stream, existing rivers. Blues are all normal waterway, existing waterway. These are all diversion trenches which we have done. So this small trench, this will lead water. Otherwise, usually flows like this. So we are just trying to percolate little more on the upper elevation itself. That's basically the whole.
The yellow one? The yellow?
Which one?
The yellow
Color
one.
one?
The yellow line.
The yellow line.
Yellow are actually from the contour we have derived this. This is basically one micro catchment, or we call it watershed. Okay, so just next, if I'll just explain.
Alright.
Go on.
What other than the topology do you consider before making this plan?
Geology. Basically, we are talking about rock for slope of the rock, right?
Yeah.
So we also have some some instruments to understand the formation of rocks.
Mhm.
So if it is a critical location, then we go into all that.
Mhm.
If it is like you really need to save even the little bit that you have, then we actually roughly map the underground geology. How is the rock profile? Where are the bowl formations?
What defines the critical location?
Like
Simply the rain.
water. See, supply demand difference. Okay, any place can be like, if we reduce our demand, then automatically the place becomes okay. Basically, supply demand mismatch.
So you are a private consulting firm?
Yeah, Concern is private consulting, but we've been doing more of voluntary work. So, for example, if a group of village or farmers or someone asks them, we just give them all the technical help, kind of. So, like that, we worked in 25 districts in Tamil Nadu. And local organizations will take care of local dealing with government and this, that. We just go and provide major technical support.
Did any of the panchayat groups ever contact you?
Which,
Did any of the Tamil Nadu panchayat groups
yeah,
ever
number
contact you?
of panchayat level work we've done. Mostly it's like, at least in the last few years, especially farmers and all having a lot of water issue, right? 7-8 years before, 10 years before, not many people used to contact us. But of late, it's a pressing issue for them, right? Recently, 1 or 2 years before, then they saw some of our work in a nearby village in Namakkal. Then the villagers, nearby village got together. They decided per acre, they will contribute 1,000 rupees. And they collected some 10 lakh plus. This is a local crowdfunding. They just did it themselves. And they asked us, what can we do to improve water situation in this area? Then we suggested there is a lot of water coming from the hillock, so we can make a network of ponds there. Then they bought land. Just the villagers, they bought land, and then wherever we suggested, they made all that, and they saw their wells, water well increasing. So it's like depends on, if there is a pressing issue, they will anyway. This was near Namakkal. So like that, a number of.
Where's Namakkal?
Namakkal is Salem,
Oh, okay.
near some 70-80 kilometers from Salem.
Is the reforestation part of the plan?
That is, so reforestation in Porabok areas, like when we work with one group of farmers, then we sort of start trying, water is a pressing issue. They'll listen, they'll sort of come to us. Then once we build a relationship, then we'll get into, okay, why not reforestation in the Porambok areas, government lands, why not organic farming?
But it's mainly according to what you want.
See, it will have to be.
I know.
Because we are all outsiders. I can't just go tell, oh, do this, do that, or I should, that doesn't simply work. Even if you do something,
They're your customers.
something like that, you can call it.
When you come into a new area, for instance, is there already existing knowledge about the structure of the
Yeah.
of the
But it will be
aquifer?
different. Some places we'll have to. So what we do is we go and identify the bottlenecks. For example, there will be already the cascading network of water bodies and flows will be there. But it will be somewhere broken. Some encroachment will be there in a waterway. Some minor thing will be there. What we do is just go figure out what is that small missing links that we can put it in place.
You talking about man-made things or just natural?
Mostly man-made.
Yeah.
Mostly man-made interruptions.
Right.
Okay. So it will be.
How do you determine the depths of aquifers and that sort of geology?
Yeah, we do that.
How?
See, there are basic technology is there for 30-40 years. One is the resistivity measure.
So there is everywhere there is some center you can go to, and they have some, like here in Pondicherry, there's the French Institute, and they have maps of the aquifers.
The maps is like, all that is like not very useful.
No.
We'll have to take ground readings there at that point.
Yeah, but how do they determine that?
So there are various, there is simple conductivity.
We have 7 aquifers apparently, How do they know that?
So for example, if you just put 2 electrodes,
Electrodes.
and supply a current, there is a derivation and all that. I'll not get into that. So there will be some resistance for this current flow.
Right.
If the resistance is less, then it is porous, more water. If the resistance is very high, then it is hard rock.
Okay.
So for different depths, we'll have to vary the distance of the electrodes and take readings.
So you move over the landscape with these electrodes.
Yeah, it's electrodes. That's exactly. And there are various newer. I'm talking about very basic, simple principle. There are other this is a resistivity method. There is another method called electromagnetic principle. There is another technology. Then there is another technology, electroseismic. Okay, you hit one place with a big hammer.
Oh,
Then you just take readings and the frequency difference with which it hits the rock and comes back. So there are technologies also which will be helpful. See, technology, we'll have to use it in the right way.
I mean, when we first came here, there was a hydrological survey, and they were digging these wells down for 300 or 400 meters and passing an electrode down, which determined the different stratas and where the different aquifers were. So I can imagine from that you can build I don't mean a horizontal map, I mean a vertical map.
But this is exactly vertical map I'm talking about.
Yeah.
See, that they'll basically, if it is already a borehole, then you just have to see it.
But that's already been done in most places, or?
It will be like 1 in some 40 kilometers, there will be one reading.
Oh,
If you
because
go
here
to
those
government of
they're
India.
doing it about every kilometer, like triangulating across the landscape.
Okay, that's a good information. If it is 1 kilometer information, then it's a very reasonably good information.
Yeah,
If we have that information.
right.
So I missed someone was asking about something.
I was wondering,
I think water and watershed and something.
no, I wanted to know,
Yeah.
if I can,
Yeah, please. I'll come to that later.
a city like Chennai, which is having a lot of water shortage, but it's also one of the highest rainfall in Tamil Nadu. Would you call that a critical thing? I mean, and how do you deal with such a situation?
See, it is place like Chennai. It is fairly simple. It is concrete jungle. Basically, there is no provision for water to get into the aquifer. So it is fairly simple, clear problem. And if no one is bothered about it, the situation will keep becoming worse. I mean, what more we can say?
What can be done?
See, what can be done from small scale? See, if you are planning a house, it could be just 100 few hundred square feet. But house will be, in one area. Then why don't you should just simply avoid putting some concrete or something all over surrounding your house. Starting with as simple as that. Just let the soil be there, so that it is helping you. It is giving a service by letting water into your aquifer. If you are just simply covering up the whole area and not letting any water in, but you keep want to suck water out of the ground, then who can help? From those simple changes to just ensuring that there is in cities the encroachment is enormous. I don't like working in cities because everywhere you go it will clearly be someone would have built something on the waterway. He would have got a patta for the for a government land. He would have built something there, then that will block all the water. So most of the time the water restoration work in cities is fighting with these people, so we don't just enter the area. We just tell them, okay, just do this, we'll give you free whatever suggestion, but you do whatever you want.
I have
Yeah.
Did you do any work close by to Auroville to see how this rock bed is formed? Is there any clear information?
Close to
that you could
Auroville,
get?
we've not done major work. The reason is at least Pondicherry farmers mainly they don't face major issue because some of the areas the aquifers are good, and from Senji all the water, rainwater, all that water finally reaches this aquifer because this is a downward kind of this thing. So we've not done major works just surrounding Pondicherry. For some reason, I don't know, though we are in Pondicherry, sort of Pondicherry, but we haven't worked majorly in Pondicherry.
Don't you think it would be very interesting to get such a mapping for the Auroville area?
Yeah, it would.
Because now that
But if Johnny is saying if it's already there for 1 kilometer, that's a good
But is it a
start.
good one?
But you, as I said, do you mainly then dig recharge wells? Is that what you do? What
We try and avoid recharge wells for one reason. See, water quantity is one thing, quality is even more important, right? Because most of the places it's all pesticide farming, and it's sort of some pollution or other is there. We at least see all pesticides and these things are water soluble.
Yeah.
Okay, so they will just directly, and every water that we drink is slightly toxic. Just keep that in mind. If you or there's no anywhere you take, even if probably Auroville will be less because there is less intensive farming or less factories around. But anywhere in the cities you take water, it is polluted. We are drinking toxic water. There is no doubt about it.
So what's the strategy if you're not using recharge wells?
So
We don't
recharge wells, we try and use surface recharge wells only. See, you can also do direct borewell recharge. You do a small borewell, 50 feet, 100 feet. Then you put a filter.
100 feet.
Huh?
100 feet.
50 feet, 10 feet, depending on that geology there, how much
Right.
you want to get.
Yeah.
And then where we suggest these kind of systems, if we are sure that that's an organic farm or something like that. They don't the water is non-polluted. At least polluted water, if it is let on the soil, there is so many other factors, bacteria and microbes. When it flows through, it will sort of decompose. There is a half-life period for all the toxic, pesticides. So it will sort of, at least we believe, because there is no this thing to it. So something will be at least taken care. If we directly do direct recharge through direct bore wells, then all the polluted water we are directly letting it into the aquifer, and it will immediately next day come from the other guy's bore, and you drink that.
Right. So how do you rejuvenate an aquifer?
So as much as possible, surface recharge. Simple structures, minor structures like
Dams, bunds.
whatever is happening in Auroville, that's one of the best ways to do it. And if the place is not, it doesn't have polluted water, then you can surely look at direct borewell recharge, various recharge shafts, depending on the geological formation. We cost effective. It's basically about cost effectiveness, like so much of rate of recharge. Like if it is a pond, then the rate of recharge will be this much. For 1 square meter of surface area, there is so much water it can percolate. But if you do a direct borewell recharge, you can percolate even 100 liters per minute, 300, 400 liters per minute in just one borehole. So it's basically accelerating that recharge this thing. But we need to ensure that it's not polluted water. So this is all various tools. So designing new waterways. Sometime back we were working in Tiruchi, where there is one panchayat, some 2,000 acres with 1,000 people. They were not having major water issue. So we actually started with saying no, we will do some 10 years back. I'm saying we will do only small, this minor structures and all. But then need is pushing us. Now we've also initially we will wherever we go, we will say, okay, we'll not even do a borewell for you. We'll only have to recharge. We'll not help doing a borewell. Then we looked at farmers, and there is so much of issue there, various things. So then later we shifted our this thing. Okay, we are doing recharge, and if you are doing recharge, then we'll help with the borewell also. Then now we are even pushed to an extent where some old panchayat we are working on also pumping water, though it is in core against what we want to do. But the need is such. Because 10 kilometers down the line, there is a Kaveri river flowing, there is so much water. This is slightly higher elevated plain, just less than 10 kilometers. And it's a huge, like about 30-35 villages. So then we said, okay, let's design a pumping system for them, and they and give them. Then they'll push with the government and get it done, at least to fill up the lakes. So the river water will again put it here, and then the underground geology is like a mount, so it will flow underground through all the wells and bore wells. Then again, it will go back to Kaveri. So we are just rerouting various things, but there is enormous power used in pumping. So we've not been doing it for a long time, but last year we said, okay, we'll just help that them design that. So that's the trajectory which is pushing us. Whatever the need is, also we are also like changing to the needs. So this is about finding that bottleneck. What is the bottleneck? Whether the capacity is good or there is an encroachment or what it is. A simple way we just next. So this is all, I'm not getting into the calculations and all. So someone was asking about that this thing. So if you see this red boundary is the watershed boundary.
But what's the scale there? What's the distance across?
Sorry.
Scale. How big is that?
This scale, this is basically for Dindivanam. The Dindivanam town is this.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, the small this thing.
And they're watershed gullies, are they?
Yeah. So so this Dindivanam, there is a water restoration group. So there is a voluntary group. So they wanted help in how do we do something about it. Then we just sort of mapped their that network that I was telling about, cascading network, right? So all these I've only mapped major ponds, and already there is a river stream network is clearly established. Then wherever there was some number of blockages here in the rivers, so it was flooding. Few years before it flooded. Then we figured out that there is some encroachment, and we removed and various things like this. So the other concept that we were trying to say is, this is I was showing a small watershed, yellow line. I think you were asking about the yellow line, right? So if you see that yellow line here, that was a very small area. So we had done a detailed mapping. So this is a watershed boundary, which basically separates water out. That's like a peak ridge.
Right.
This whole line is a ridge.
Yeah.
Okay, if you see all the rivers on this side is flowing on the other direction,
Okay.
this river, but this side it is flowing towards this direction. So it's a water separator. So for example, if at this point, if I have to calculate how much water will come, then we'll have to map this catchment area. This is the area. So I'll calculate this area and then do some calculation. So if so much of rainfall is there, so much water will come in this stream.
Right.
And so there are assumptions. If it is a forested area, then there will be less runoff. If it's depending on the land use and various things, we can get into a details of all these.
Are these peaks man-made or are they natural?
Man-made. Sorry, it's completely natural. Man can just make nothing.
Or something?
Huh?
They're like semi-kills or something?
See, you won't see it when you go there.
Oh, okay.
Some places it will be clearly visible. See, there is natural systems. If we see fundamental, this thing is even take water for example. Take it biodiversity. Take it soil. There is a design in nature that, and there is a connected design. So whatever we try to do, if we try and align to that resource for even water or soil, so our interventions, whatever we do, if we do things that are aligned to already existing natural process, then there is no waste creation. Okay. So for example, if there is, so everything, even soil you take for that example. If we are taking soil, if we are doing very intensive farming, we are not bothered about organic carbon or microbes in the soil. We are just making it into a dirt, soil to dirt. We just pump pesticides, then all the microbes will die off. Then soil loses its organic carbon. We have 30 years data where it said, 30 years before there were in many places I've worked with few people who said first data 5% organic carbon in soils, and now the same places if you go it's less than 1. And where normal our farms, agriculture farms, if you see it was at least 1% plus before, now it's 0.25 and less. And organic carbon actually, if it is better from 0.25 to 1%, then there is a 30% increase in water holding capacity. We talked about 40%, 50%, right? So if there is more organic carbon, the capacity, water holding capacity increases by 30%. So all these are sort of linked.
When you go in a bus through this area, you can probably see all of these like rocky areas, right?
Senji, towards Dindivanam to Senji, you will have a lot of rock area.
Huh?
From where? Which area you say?
No, just like
Generally,
if you go through like this area in a bus, you can see the landscape is quite.
Yeah.
I guess you could compare it a bit if on a little slope rain falls to where it runs. No, the similar thing is underground. That if it falls onto a little mold of this, you'll have one side the water running here, but on the other, on the back of the soil, you have the water.
So similar to top terrain, underground also there will be some kind of a.
Yeah, it's like not visible. It's not like a mountain. If it was
so we try and map that if it's a very critical area.
Yeah, whenever you're in a bus and it's raining, you can't really see that also, no?
Next.
Because it's dark or something.
This is 3 panchayats we worked near Tanjavur. So they have, again did some, their friends from there in US and they funded and local people funded and various things we did. So here there is already also, so we just mapped this one watershed, 2-3 panchayats together. So next, I'll just go fast. So this is one example of lake restoration. This is one place where we created new lakes because there is a lot of runoff from Kolli Hills, but the wells in the area were not drying up fast in summer, so we did some major work there. Next, yeah. This is just there was already a huge pond, 2 crore plus capacity, but it was not getting water at all for last 10 years, 15 years. So we just increased the catchment area by giving a small trench so that increased the water is coming from the mountain. We just got it like this and brought it to there. So like this, the minor interventions, what existing already infrastructure is there. To make it work efficiently, what intervention we need to do? That way. Yeah, I'll just.
I mean, in this area here, for instance, there's a very large area in Evaporation. They used to supply all the rice farmers around there and below. But now the problem there is that the rice farmers are all taking their water from bore wells rather than taking it from the area, so nobody's touching the area, and the bore wells are running dry.
Yeah. And it has happened all over. See, slowly the disconnection from the common resources, areas and other. Earlier, village people used to maintain areas and everything.
But now they just chuck their rubbish.
Now it's like now,
Batteries and everything.
and especially every city nearby you go, it is all sewage and plastic sewage. All is filled with areas are filled with only that in mainly near towns. Every town you take, every small town. So
Can we ask questions now?
yeah, please. Yeah, that's
I just wanted to understand what your opinion is about the connecting the rivers. I remember I heard about this a while ago, and I also heard that connecting the rivers means that it might go through some sanctuaries. There is one tiger sanctuary. And the river was supposed to go through that, which means it would destroy a lot of the forests and stuff. And also connecting these rivers, which would make like water accessible for big companies as well, right? For them to take advantage of that situation, like Coca-Cola, for example.
Yeah, anyone, that will happen.
Well, what is your opinion about that? And is it happening?
See, as of now, I don't like it, but like I told you, that's maybe a problem in us. Like a year before, we worked on pumping water. Few years before, we would have never done that. We'll say, okay, no pumping. You just manage with water you have in your watershed. Coming to that direct, what's wrong? Okay. So as I tell, if we just look at with water lens, then you will get one perspective. If you look at water plus soil plus biodiversity, water plus soil, biodiversity plus short term or long term. These are the various lens with which we could look at. So it's like on long term, it's surely a no. As simple as see, Kaveri water is you don't even have to fertilize your fields if you're using some specific waters, which is rich in aquatic life. Okay, so if I say I'm connecting one river to this river, if there is some invasive species in that river, if someone has brought some catfish from China and let it into that river, so all these invasive guys will travel all over and finish everyone else. Okay, you will lose biodiversity drastically. If it's all decentralized, if it is all there in their own pack, their local biodiversity, there is so much in aquatic life which sort of takes care of so many things. The water purification a lot of what we are saying, we are still, though we are using so much of pesticide, but still by the time it grows to the ground, a lot of things happen with the bacteria, with the pesticide. All this because bacterial diversity is there. All that purification will happen because aquatic diversity is there. So if diversity is disturbed, then ecological functions of that system will be lost. There is so much of service that, various things that we see around us does. We just simply don't notice it.
Just to understand who is behind wanting this to happen, do you know?
One who takes a short-term perspective. Like, for example, I am a politician. If I am a politician here, I want some support of the farmers here. Then I'll simply say I'll not look at long-term. I'll say, okay, if we just connect this river to here, we'll get so much water, and then
there are benefits like that.
There will be benefits, but short-term, long-term, and
is it going to happen?
It will most likely happen the way things are going,
Right.
but slow. I mean, the kind of resistance we give, it will change the pace at which it is happening. Okay, and may not everything may not happen. Like, for example, small things are already happening. Andhra, if you see Kaleshwaram lift irrigation project, they are lifting so much of water and pumping to another river. Various things are already happening. Someone is talking about it, then already there are 100 things happening at a slightly smaller scale. So, and what we can see is in our locality, do we need it? If there is something happening like that, do we put resistance or do we just keep quiet? So that's all. Yes.
If we worked out that we're only consuming a 60th of our rainfall in terms of our personal consumption, bore wells are running dry.
Mm-hmm.
We think they're dropping at something like a meter a year.
Like here, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all over Auroville.
Mm-hmm.
Some places more dramatically than others.
Mm-hmm.
If we come to you with that problem, what's the first thing you're going to do?
So first thing is we'll just, whatever you said, there is 1 kilometer data and all, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So first thing what we will do is we will just look at water availability. How much water budget kind of a thing, roughly. Is there water? How much is the rainfall? What is the water coming in through the river streams close by and all that? Is all this water utilized properly here?
Because as far as we can see, there's on the forested areas at least there's very little runoff.
Mm-hmm.
On the urban areas and stuff, with his roads, of course, there is still some runoff, but we've minimized the runoff. So most of it is being soaked in and is being transpired by the trees.
Mm-hmm. So, if we have, for example, I'm just talking about one other extreme case kind of a thing. I think I'm not talking specifically on Auroville. I just wanted to say this because you asked. So there is in some desert kind of a place. Let us say there is a desert. Okay, and if we are, it won't be great if we want to green the desert, because that location can support only some kind of a biodiversity, which is desert-based biodiversity. If we create a lot of trees there, then there will be a lot more water evaporation happening. Okay, so which is also not good. And greening in the sense, if just planting trees and greening may not be also a great thing. So we'll have to look at the context. I thought when you asked this, I thought I should just communicate this one. Okay, coming back to your this thing. So one is like most of the time we lose local details. For example, Auroville as a whole is a major area, nearby villages, ponds, various things. So we should also look at it as small pockets. So the data that mostly how we this thing is, they'll take one data from one location. But as I told you that each and every small micro watershed is independent. We'll have to come out with a small plan for that small local area. So in that local area, there will be a sort of a water budget. There is so much water, rainwater, pond, this thing, water is coming in so much, and so many bore wells are there. So many people are pumping out so much water for various activities. What is the water balance for that small area? Then that deficit has to be as locally as possible managed. then this overall water dropping will reduce. Major question will be at what resolution or how locally you are looking at. That will be a critical aspect.
I mean, when you consider that 50 years ago there was nobody living on this planet and no bore wells at all, and there are now, we think, maybe 1,000 bore
Then
wells.
obviously it will go down. There is no doubt.
Right.
But 200 years ago, there were many people.
I mean, and it's an increasing number. It's not as if there's any
It is,
restriction
see,
on.
it is
I mean,
everywhere increasing, so that is a major reason for water.
so the feeling now is to stop bore wells and to concentrate on water harvesting.
That's perfectly. In fact, some areas, one area in Andhra where one of my friends was also there, we worked at, he actually interacted with a lot of people and even tried to bring in a concept of you don't go below, borewell should not go in their panchayat below 150 feet.
Right.
Things like this have happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so they just decided locally, okay, they saw, okay, if someone, then it becomes a competition. If I do a borewell, for 200 feet, then neighbor is only 150 feet. This competition has been happening for ages. With open wells also, 100 years before, same competition was happening.
Yeah.
Neighbor will do a little deeper well. Then this guy will lose water. Then he has to borrow money and go a little more deep. This competition keeps happening, and then finally whole farming activity becomes non-viable. Okay. So similarly now it's going like in some places 2,000 feet people are going. 2,000 feet, 2,500. Yeah, it's just so it's like if we don't do any borewell, that's the best thing.
But then the problem is if you're dealing with kullams, which is in large ponds and eries, don't you have a like particularly here in summer we have a huge evaporation. I mean, we think it's like a centimeter a day of evaporation on open exposed water. And so what they say is that if you want to hold water harvesting, you've got to cover it.
See, again, evaporation is also a natural process. This is my take.
Yeah.
Okay, water comes as rain. Part of evaporated water is also coming back as rain. It's a connected system. So we can't look at as okay, let's stop all evaporation.
Right.
Okay, then you may not get the rain at all.
Right.
There has to be a conducive condition for rains to form, right?
Isn't most of our rain coming from evaporation from the sea?
From the sea, yes. We are on a seashore, very true. So still I would say if the structures are smaller, if instead of huge pond at one place, in that same small watershed where instead of one pond, if there is a 10 pond, 15 pond, smaller ponds here and there.
Deeper ponds?
No. Deeper is also okay. One, from an evaporation point of view, deeper helps simply because the surface area is less for one particular volume of water.
Right, because the old tradition here with the kullams is that they're very gradually sloped, and usually they're lined with clay.
Yeah, true.
So there's very little percolation.
Very little percolation. There, the need was different. There was no bore well.
Yeah.
People were dependent on pond water for drinking in summers.
Right.
They don't have. So now the need is different. Now everyone has gone for bore wells. No one is taking water from the pond.
Yeah.
So we have to change systems according to the circumstance and situation also.
Yeah.
So what was your purpose in making multiple ponds instead of one large?
See, basically one is the recharge rate. Okay, and as Johnny was saying, for this much volume, how much of surface area that the water is exposed? I mean, covering it with more something, then they will bring in more thing, then that will cause some other wastage, that will create some other toxicity. We get into that covering business, then it becomes more kind of an issue. So, one is basically what we have observed is instead of one pond at say 10 acres kind of a pond, if that same thing can be decentralized, for example, let us say there is an elevation here. So instead of this 10 acre pond, if I have 1 acre pond at 10 different locations in slightly upper elevation, in the same watershed, you remember watershed is where all the water is coming, to this pond. So important advantage that will give us is, see, this 1 acre of water, I am recharging it in an upper area. Okay, so what happens is, by the time that water reaches this pond, it will take 1 or 2 months. Okay, so effectively we'll be increasing the groundwater depth at that in all that area. Even if we say increase the groundwater by 1 meter, we are utilizing the groundwater capacity to maximum. If I just do 10 acre recharge totally here, it will maximize recharge in this area. Okay, but this water won't recharge the upper areas. So that capacity of this thing, we are not utilizing that capacity. So this is like a multiplier effect. Instead of the same water, same amount of water, if I just recharge, for example, even take example in monsoon. If I just have this pond will get filled up in the monsoon, then the next rain it will overflow. But instead, if I just have this one pond there, so that will this will recharge this suck of air, this okay, the one on top. Okay, so actually there's a multiplier effect, which I don't know if I'm communicating it clearly. I'm not using the right words maybe, but there is a multiplier effect when we do more decentralized, more small scale, slightly upper catchment.
DC has put some water there for
So I have one thing I wanted to share.
Yeah.
Some years ago, we started building a big dam. We got a lot of criticism, you can name it or something, because we're also on a sensitive watershed. Only it's a lot, like you say, it's in the clay. Johnny knows also the area there, it's very clay. We have a lot of clay and stones. It took around 4 years from this dam that we built. Everyone was like, you're going a bit too big. 4 years it took for neighbors to come from quite far away to say our wells have gone up rapidly. I don't know now.
What has gone up?
The water has gone up in the ground level around the bores there, because they also do measurements, no?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes if the water is really big, maybe, I mean, we did also many small ponds, but this big pond did the effect around. Because only after it was completed and this rain filled it, they came and said, wow, your dam seems to have worked on our area, which is Alankupam, and several kilometers.
So I have a lot of examples.
This is nowadays?
This is just with the last big rain. It only filled like 2 years ago.
This is
time.
where
We're working many years.
You're
This is
quite
where
close
exactly-
to your water to aquifer though, aren't you? Your
Also,
water
but to
table's
just
about
see
10
how-
meters.
Only after we completed that big work, the neighbors feel the impact.
Where is this?
This is close to Alankupam, no?
Okay, so there are 2-3 perspectives to it. See, this big pond would obviously impact the closer wells in a big way.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it did. I mean, after a while,
But-
4 years later.
Okay, but thing is, do you want to focus on this area, or you also want to focus on upper areas? And if you look at holistically all this area together, how much of water we have held in this watershed, then this decentralizing will have a multiplier effect. Here, obviously, you have a big pond here, it will obviously impact the nearby wells. Okay. Some places, even major dams, I've had examples where there is a huge dam, slightly hilly area, but nearby wells don't get water.
Because of clay.
Rock
Rock.
sheet. They've just built concrete dam, and so it's like acting like a tank. It is not percolating water. So someone is pumping water, and taking it to somewhere else, or they have an irrigation system somewhere else. This half kilometer close by, 100 meter kilo by people don't get water. See, these are all possible.
But the question is still coming. So the locals are saying that they're getting more water in the wells, but the open wells stay dry. Even the heavy rain, we have only that one small well where you also drew a picture from.
Yeah.
All the bigger wells, which is right behind 9 farms, right close to that canyon,
see, that's also,
they are dry.
That's also natural,
So
because as Johnny was
there is
saying,
something happening.
it's as simple as that. Number of borewells.
That space is gone.
Number of borewells is more than you supply and demand. If we just supply less water, keep drawing more, and it's never going to come up. See, you've done some increase to the balance. You've increased because of this whatever work you've done. So it is at least showing up in the bore wells. For that to show up in the well, you need to do a lot more of supply, but then or reduce the pumping. Either of it you do, water will automatically come to the wells.
Alright, what if they take all the roof water from their community, say, and run it into the open well? Will that rejuvenate the aquifer?
Sure, that will
Theoretically, I could put my 2 open dry wells,
that will surely
more or
help.
less dry wells. One has a bit of water because it's quite deep,
Yeah.
and 2 others are fully dry. We used to swim there as kids. Now they don't even fill. They fill very short up in the rain season. They might come nearly to the top, but in no time they're down.
That
Because
will surely help.
we only pumped from them in the past. Why we had to go
So
a bit
in
deeper?
fact,
Because it
in
was
fact we
no.
suggest to pump from the wells, open wells, and not the bore wells. If there is water,
But
in
there is
the,
no water.
yeah, that's
The
the
locals also stopped doing that because, like Johnny on your pictures shows, no, they had first the diesel pump, they pumped it nice,
Yeah.
then they bored the bore well at I don't know how many meters into that open well that they used for so many years for watering. Now it's gone. There is no more open well to swim for.
No, that's the
There's
scenario
no more-
all over. It's just not here.
Do you
I
think
mean, you
it'll
can see
come
so
back?
many,
Like what he says, if I put now one huge pipe there and pump it from my dams or from my roofs, but I don't have such big roofs anyway.
Is
so
it far away from your
So,
water body?
they
Is
should.
it far away from your water body?
It's quite. I mean,
Yeah, it's right.
see
below.
other major issue
below.
with
I mean,
issue with
300
water.
meters.
This up and sorry.
Okay.
So other major issue we see, there are places where we are doing some work and nearby villages will come and fight.
yes.
See, the water politics also locally also is pretty strong because
But it is communication, right? If you communicate in a non-aggressive way.
it helps, but sometimes there is only so much resource. Okay, they have to share it. Okay, if one village wants, for example, I'm in a low lying. I'm living in a low lying village. Okay, if I don't do any recharge, all the water will come to me in this well, and my village will be prosperous. But they won't get any water. But if you look at it, this village plus this village, if I do that, then in monsoon I'll let water out also because it will overflow and go. But at the same time, if I let this guy in the upstream do a lot of recharge, then if it is a rain, if the monsoon is not good, then I may not get enough water. He'll get more water because he has done.
Yeah, I understand.
It's a practical this thing. So as a villager, as a farmer, I have to see this is balance. This is a political balance that happens locally also. And so either do I give him the major thing, but overall holistically, if you do it upper, then upper areas will get recharged, and then if whatever they'll be the first users because their wells and bore wells will get water first. Then if they don't use so much, then through the ground also it will come to me, mine in the second lower village. So this is also, it's not as simple as what is best. Also locally, see,
I mean, there has to be a limit to how much they overuse up there so that there is enough. So that
Well, talk about political balance. The big turning point here was when the government started giving free electricity to the farmers. You know,
Yes,
that's a major killer.
We've got neighbour farmers who used to grow rain-fed millets, who now grow coconuts, rice, sugarcane, and they're pumping 30,000 litres an hour because they're not paying for the electricity.
That's true.
They're doing casuarina on flood irrigation. The water is standing this deep. They're going
Casuarina
with
is all
three-phase
flood
pumps from
irrigated.
this big
They
next to
used to
place
harvest
trying
casuarina every 10 years, now they harvest it every 3 years.
5, 7, some maybe.
So if we just look at water, then that's a major issue. Free current is a major issue in Tamil Nadu and southern
But
states.
you can't talk about it.
No, I mean, at least I do talk wherever I get a chance. I do. But the other thing is, I'll not talk like she was saying, more effective communication. So if we just simply say no free current, then farmers will be against, because already farming as a viable option is not viable. As an economic activity is less viable.
Yeah.
But they should give subsidy in different forms.
Absolutely.
Or I would even say farmers are not being subsidized because customers are being directly subsidized.
Yeah.
Because 1 kg of rice you got 20 years before, and now if you see price would have just doubled. That's all maximum.
Yeah.
But input cost to farming would have become 20 times, 30 times.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't make sense to say that farmers are given subsidy. farmers are simply not being given subsidy. Customers are being given subsidy by keeping the price of farm produces low. And then you simply say, I'm giving free current, and the economics has to slightly change. Customers has to pay more. Then electricity has to be charged.
Wow, that's such a messed up way
So
that it is now.
only then there will be some sense of righteous or calculated use of water. If we don't measure anything, if we don't charge also, then they won't sort of optimize usage. We'll have to build the power, but then farming has to be made more viable through various other interventions. So it's just not water. When we start with water, then it becomes politics, economics, and all that. Everything is sort of related now. That's it.
One question. Do you know if Auroville, sorry, please go first.
Well, sorry, because I felt that you asked all this question. I have a question. Going back to the reforestation.
Oh, yes, sorry.
You said that it's not good to reforest areas that are desert.
Yeah.
But the area that were forests
Have become desert.
have become desert. So reforesting that areas would definitely bring a benefit.
Very, very true. There is this concept of successive evolution, sort of, or ecological succession. Right. So we, if we do some intervention that is not like we were saying, no, if that ecosystem is supporting something, it's best to do that, easy to do that. We don't have to do too much of maintenance.
But there is some experience in this type of not, I don't know, invasive reforestation or more organic reforestation. There is some experience in Tamil Nadu.
See, even you take Auroville, for example, acacia is most debated thing, right? So Australian species, and then, so it's like, if we do something not aligned to sort of this thing, then we need to manage it well. For example, if it's a dry area, I am bringing in, but I am bringing in some invasive species just to create some green initially. But then you need to have a management plan. Once you know that when that succession happens, okay, some green I have got, maybe it has brought some more rains, some ecology has developed, then you need to get out of it.
Yeah, it's another type of planning. It's another type of
See, I am completely with you on saying it helps, but all I'm saying is we'll have to just a little more cautious. It's not a, for example, if someone says, okay, I've grown a thick green forest, it may not be always good. For example, a grassland converted into an evergreen forest may not be good. Okay, it depends on that this thing, because that area, that rainfall, grassland plus some ecosystem were thriving. So we so if we just replace that ecosystem, that habitat, I would say, then see, one ecosystem supports one type of habitats, flora, fauna, all these are related, right? So if there is a habitat that supports, if I just introduce a small tree chunk here, it's a grassland, then bird predators will come and sit aramse there, and then finish off the guys who are the usually who live in the grass. That's again may not be good. So I'm only saying there are various aspects of it. Blindly I would not agree to anything that is okay, tree planting, it's good all over.
How to identify the land, like which one is a grassland and which one is a...
So in fact, I am there is a friend of mine in our team, there is an ecologist also. So all this information I am getting from over years of interacting with him. So basically we do a biodiversity sort of an assessment. Okay, so identify what is there, what are the habitats, what is the, for example, some few years, 4-5 years before, we did an assessment near Chittor. So there we figured out that they wanted to, they simply wanted, okay, there is not much of trees, so we should plant a lot of trees. That was there, this thing. After the biodiversity assessment, we sort of came to a conclusion that this is a grassland, majorly grassland, and all wildlife, okay, almost like 70% of wildlife is dependent on the grassland. So if you simply change it into tree formation, all this wildlife will be lost. So you just basically get a little more close and observe what is there, what is the functional ecosystem there, what is the habitat, what is the wildlife and other life forms that habitat is supporting. You're making one change, okay, in that whole connected piece. Is that change needed? So if you change that, all the other pieces will be disturbed. So what is that you want? If we are doing an intervention, then we need to see what is that we want. If it is a natural intervention, for example, major earthquake, major disaster, then that has its own succession. There is some functional ecosystem. There is an earthquake coming. It disturbs. Then whatever is connected to it gets disturbed. But a realignment happens over 100 years. A different sort of an ecosystem gets established there. That will support one set of wildlife. So this is in. But when is that ecosystem stable? That is one thing. If it is already a stable ecosystem, stable habitat supporting so much of life, this thing, then it may not be a great idea to just disturb.
What is your perception on the policies made by Kaveri calling? You know, the ones on the rivers, because it was a sort of a hype for a bit to reforest the banks of the rivers, and reforesting the banks of the rivers would create more sort of water holding, and so the rivers would come back alive. That was sort of the.
See, on the outside, it is okay. I mean, they're just planting more trees, so I'll just say, okay, let them do. But then if you ask me little more deeper questions, and then there is a lot of, in fact, there was a court case saying Kaveri calling is illegal.
Yeah.
So, High Court of Karnataka asked who owns this Kaveri calling.
Yeah.
And who is the owner of it. They have opened a bank account without even telling what entity it belongs to. There is no company called Kaveri calling, but there is a bank account. Isha clearly claimed that we don't have anything to do with Kaveri calling in the court. Is that what?
From
Yeah.
Isha.
Yeah. So, but what you see on the ground is different. So I'm only, if look at it holistically, what is the this thing and all that, then okay, let's forget about that. If we just look at ecological aspects of it, they are just saying we'll plant more trees on the banks of the river. And I think, in fact, they also claimed that someone should fund, if they fund 40 rupees, then they will plant one tree for a farmer, something like that, if I'm right. So, okay, they are just diverting. I would say, see, just planting trees in the farm and various things is good. So, however they channel the money and all, let's forget about it. If the tree planting is happening and something is happening, at least they shouldn't disturb some, already sort of a forest and then go do planting there. In the farms they are doing planting, then it's well and good. Let's just go for it.
My question was more like, because you're saying that you have to be careful. Now in the Nilgiris, in the British Empire, they planted on the grassland area.
Yeah, that already.
And then finally, afterwards, they slowly realized that actually the grassland is what keeps the flora alive.
Exactly.
And then they started to try to.
I think a lot of research has happened on it, and it clearly established that foresting is not needed there.
Now in this Kaveri calling, there was a sort of standard. The full river, they even were looking at all the major rivers of India to have a sort of buffer line of trees to each river to keep the water in. Now, would you, it's sort of like a band-aid thing.
I think in my opinion that's good, but they should be very cautious about what species they are planting. Okay, and some of my friends will also say, don't even take saplings from a different location. Like how we have our behaviors. Plants have various behavioral patterns. and you just simply take a sampling from some other place, same sampling, I'm saying, same species, botanically, this name, that name, but they would have interacted with different species in that locality. The behavior of same species is different. So as local as possible, you create saplings and plant.
But would you call the damage that of such a standardized process higher than not? I mean, I'm just wondering because is it better to not do anything, or is it better to do the standardized process even though it's quite damaging? What would your perception?
See, I would surely go for not doing anything. After all, what is the major, this thing? I mean, it's more for our ego satisfaction that we do a lot of things. That's my perception of, so because whatever we do has a repercussion. See, what we do any activity that we do has a sort of a effect on a cosmic kind of a connected systems. So most of the times, if we all of us decide to do nothing, that's the best thing that can happen, but that will never happen. So I am sure if I don't do all this, nature has its ways, and we do some destruction here, some other thing will come compensate it. But only thing is, there will be a lot more destruction in the time period that we live. Can we, see and accept it? That's the question internally. Okay.
Nature
Yeah, please.
No, but nature also it carries, like through birds or something that you are taking seeds from one place to another place.
The rate of it, if you say, it will be more natural. I'm using the word natural, but if we do it, we'll just take some 10,000 seeds and go put it there. But bird won't do at that rate, right? So there is a difference. So there is surely, if we plan and do something, if we are not conscious about various factors, and it's always impossible for a human mind to compute all factors. Okay. But what we can do is, okay, with this limited scope of my thinking process, I'm thinking this is something a reasonably okay intervention, and importantly, we have to accept the issues that will come out of that later. It will be honest.
Before we went through that, a lot of the things they planted in the beginning just to plant a tree was the wrong thing, but it gave a beginning and then the right thing.
Yeah. That is.
I wanted to ask you, I have the feeling that you're saying that an increased sort of, then you're being more and more asked to do sort of water work because it's becoming more and more urgent for so many more people. And do you see also a sort of a direct or connection to also this idea of reforestation? Like, does that often come into the picture or mostly not?
Sorry, just come again.
So you've seen an increase in the interest in water, soil and water conservation because of the water need. Do you also see linked to that an increased sense of we also have to replant, reforest, or whatever?
See, actually, it surely comes up. Another more little psychologically, what I'm saying is, if everyone for example, if everyone is having enough water, there is no problem, there is no major issue, then they don't even get together and together work on doing something. So when they come together, they come to, for example, a number of places in the weekends, they come to the, areas and work together. When they come and put their hands into the soil, then there is more, they themselves sort of understand the connection. Then their way of seeing, the perception of seeing varies, changes. If they just simply sit in their home, not really get involved in any activity, if there is no problem, then it is a bigger problem also. Everyone becomes isolated, and then they are comfortable, happy with themselves. This connection is lost, working together is lost. Then reality perception is also lost. Once they start doing this water thing, they surely, then they'll be open to, accepting the facts that, okay, we need to do reforestation. We need to do organic farming.
And that's also something that you're helping them with?
Yeah. The idea is actually organic. If large scale, if we want to do this, the pesticide usage, if it is reduced, that's a major thing for the biodiversity.
Within your own work, I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
And everywhere. See, one of the major, like we are talking about water, right? I think Auroville, there is enough people have been talking about biodiversity, so I don't have to, re-emphasize so much. So,
I really appreciate your scope and your larger picture in which so many people have that too.
Yeah.
but water, we are strategically, in some sense, using it as a way to get connected. Then we get sort of some relationship is built, and then they sort of understand a lot of things. Then their mind opens up to things like forestation or reforestation or doing less harmful farming and things like that.
So have there been projects that where actually it did come down to organic farming and reforestation?
Yeah,
that actually got
number of
by the people.
that is happening.
What is your opinion of what Ramco's doing?
Which who?
Ramco Cement?
I am not aware of.
They have many projects throughout
What they are doing? I mean,
regeneration,
okay.
where they've gone in and mined and now they're planting.
Okay, mine and the
the
plant.
botanical garden is supplying it a lot of.
Yeah, so I'll just de-link these two. Mining, I'll de-link. I'll keep it as separate. If there is already a mined devastated location, can we restore? Yeah, surely we have to do. There is no. So if you club these two, then it becomes tricky.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that mining and then all? Then it's a
Come.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
So
Thank you for your patience.
in the program,
Somebody wants.
there is a movie also.
Yeah.
If you drink water, you have to watch it. That's the name of it.
Aren't we also watching Victor Schoenberger?
Yes.
Yeah, after that.
After that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that hasn't been advertised at all.
There was somebody
But you just put it as a
In the
film,
program.
water film
you know,
festival.
Here now.
So when does it?
Yes, here now.
Now, that is dinner or no?
Years ago.
No, here now. Now, then we have to eat.
But I think, what do you think?
No, there's two movies. The second one was, there's two movies. The second one was not
I've seen longer. I think for dinner now.